Have you ever prayed but never got an answer, and wondered if God was really there? Did you feel all hope was gone, but in His time He came along and answered the prayer you thought was gone? There is no prayer too small, for God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember, there is no prayer too small. I have read, if you will ask, you shall receive. No matter what it is, I still believe. There is no prayer too small, and even when we fall, He gives us just exactly what we need. There is no prayer too small, for God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember, there is no prayer too small. No prayer too small. He always knows what's right. God hears them all. There is no prayer too small. My God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember, there is no prayer too small. No prayer too small. No prayer too small. God hears them all.
Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach and the host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. As an addiction recovery coach, I want to share something with you, and let me be crystal clear to leave an everlasting impact upon you. Just imagine being buried alive. You're in a coffin, but you're not dead. You don't know how to get out of that coffin. You try lifting the lid. The enormous weight upon the lid prevents you from opening the lid. You try banging on the lid to maybe unsettle the dirt, maybe somebody will notice and dig their way down towards you. This is what it's like to find yourself at the lowest point of alcohol and drug addiction. You know you need help. You know you can't do it on your own, but you don't know where to turn. In reality, there's probably somebody standing by your grave. You just don't know that. You just think today you're going to die. Usually, though, people don't think about death when they're habitually abusing drugs and alcohol. In order to feed an addiction, you have to be great at repressing the fear of death. I often ask you, that's right, you, did it ever cross your mind while you're abusing drugs and alcohol that maybe, just maybe, you might take something that was given to you by the Lord Jesus Christ away from yourself, called life? If that's not bad enough, do you want to be even more selfish and take your life away from the people that count and need you most? People like your mother, your father, brother, sister, husband, wife, children, or grandchildren. with this, let me leave one last thought. Don't be like the person I just read about on these index cards that waited and waited until it was too late to find help. And instead, call me at 844-405-HELP, and I promise you, I will help you take your life back before your life is gone. Larry Geis from the Geis Academy, 516-458-2741. Larry Geis is an addiction recovery coach, a life coach, over 30 years experience. He and I always tell folks like you, it doesn't matter where you came from, it doesn't matter where you've been. What matters most is that you are reaching out to Larry at 516-458-2741 or www.odysseyconsultant.org. Larry Geis will take you from your addiction to recovery, from depression to happier times, from low self-esteem to raise your self-esteem. Larry Geis from the Geis Academy, 516-458-2741. Folks, don't forget to take your slippers off at night and put them by your bed, but not at the edge of your bed, but under your bed. That way in the morning you'll be forced to drop to your knees. Now you're going to look for your, there they are, the slippers, pull them out. Utilize something that I call knee-mail, and I want you to do this each and every morning. The night before the slippers go under the bed, in the morning you're on your knees retrieving your slippers. Knee-mail, K-N-E-E mail, is your relationship between you and the Almighty God. That's the time where you can thank God for sceneries like this. Do you see this? Because there's somebody that didn't wake up. You had the opportunity for a brand new day to start a brand new life. Thank God for that. Thank God that you have a home and you have clothing and you have food to eat. Ask God for guidance and direction. Ask God for mercy and forgiveness. Ask God to help you with no matter what issue you have, because addiction recovery coaches, a life coach like myself and Larry Geis, are just mere crutches here on earth. You can lean on us and we can guide you, but the Almighty God is the one that 99.9% guides you for where you want to go. And He's the one that will give you the results you want to see. But you have to be willing to speak to Him. And no better way to speak to Him is through knee-mail, K-N-E-E mail, your relationship between you and God. Every single morning is the best time to do it. Once you finished your prayer, put those slippers on, stand straight up, roll your shoulders back, stick your chest out, and walk with God 24/7. Folks, we are closing in on the final two people to become president, either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. But there were other contenders, and for the 2016 candidates, fight against addiction often became personal. The heroin epidemic is particularly acute in New Hampshire, the first state in the nation that holds a primary election. They already did that, so this is past tense now. And it has placed the problem at the forefront of the 2016 presidential campaign. Several of the candidates have been personally affected by addiction of the family or of their friends. Jeb Bush's daughter, Noelle, struggling with drug addiction, was arrested while he served as Florida's governor. Carly Fiorina's stepdaughter died of a drug overdose in 2009. Other candidates count family members and friends among those who have struggled with drugs. There is every single person, I don't care who you are, knows someone that has an issue with drugs and alcohol. The few who don't have personal connection to addiction are learning about the magnitude of the problem in town halls and forums with New Hampshire voters, and it's throughout the country as well, here on Long Island. Heroin in the heartland. State officials estimated that there are more than 400 deaths from drug use during 2015, twice as many as 2013. Over half of those deaths have been reported by mid-December were caused by fentanyl, an opiate that can be more powerful than heroin, according to the New Hampshire Chief Medical Examiner. Now, mind you, this is all based on New Hampshire statistics. A full 25% of New Hampshire adults said drug abuse was the top issue facing their state in October. That October poll was taken October 14th. It was the first time in 8 years that jobs and economy hadn't been taking the top spot. There's widespread agreement that the sentencing laws need to change so nonviolent drug offenders end up in treatment, not in prison. But Republicans are more likely to point to drug courts and state solutions, where Democrats see room for lots of federal investment. Here's a look at how candidates want to tackle the problem. Chris Christie, of course, he's not in there anymore. In an interview earlier this year in New Jersey, Governor made an emotional plea to improve treatment for drug addiction that turned into a viral video on YouTube. I saw. He talked, matter of fact, if you want to see it, just go to www.takeyourlifebacktoday show. I believe go under blog and you'll see it there. He talked about law school friend who began taking Percocet to treat a back injury and ultimately became addicted. In spite of the intervention he and his friends held, the friend went in and out of rehab before he was found dead in a hotel room 10 years later with an empty bottle of Percocet and an empty quart of vodka. Christie also talked about how people like his mother, who got lung cancer from smoking, received far more compassion than people who became addicted to heroin, cocaine, or alcohol. Every life is precious. Every life is an individual gift from God, he told the New Hampshire audience. We have to stop judging and start giving them the tools they need to get better, Christie said. As governor and presidential candidate, he's advocated treatment programs over prison sentences for drug offender. In late April, Christie signed legislation to establish a statewide opiate law enforcement task force to expand drop-off locations for unused prescription drugs. As president, he would instruct his attorney general to establish more drug courts and push people into mandatory addiction treatment rather than into prison. Jeb Bush. Bush this week opened up with his daughter's struggle with addiction as a way to connect with voters. The pain that you feel when you have a loved one who has an addiction challenges and spirals out of control is something that I share with a whole lot of people, he said at a New Hampshire forum on addiction and heroin epidemic on that Tuesday. And in the post on the Medium, he presented a plan targeting drug supply and demand. He favors starting drug abuse and addiction prevention during childhood, helping nonviolent offenders to get treatment, increasing punishments for drug sales, stopping the flow of illegal drug across the border, and improving treatment and recovery programs. It will take a real leadership that makes solving the problem top priority. I've successfully fought this epidemic as governor, but more importantly, I've experienced as a father, Jeb wrote. Carly Farina, who lost her stepdaughter to a drug overdose in 2009, warned that continuing to criminalize drug addiction will not solve the problem. The system we have today is part of a problem that we are facing, not part of the solution, she said. We now have the highest incarceration rates in the world, and the majority of people we have in prison are people like my daughter, Lori, struggling with addiction. Drug addiction becomes a major issue in 2016 campaign. She wrote, we must invest more in the treating of drug addiction and put nonviolent drug offenders into treatment, not into prison. She praised states like Texas, which created special drug courts to deal with problems of addiction, and Georgia, which has prioritized helping inmates with education and jobs so they can get a better plan for their lives after they leave prison. John Kasich. Like many of his Republican colleagues, the Ohio governor talks about the importance of reducing jail sentences, going after dealers, and adequately funding drug rehab centers. At the New Hampshire Forum Tuesday, he told voters that, as governor, he ordered state agencies to stop requiring that job seekers disclose where they have a prior criminal conviction. But he has also questioned the efficiency of using funds for school and anti-drug programs. We don't need to give a school teacher money or training to tell kids, don't do drugs. He said in the forum, if someone can convince me that we need money, I'm willing to listen, but I haven't figured out yet why. Instead, he suggested that putting mentors into schools convince kids to stay away from addictive substances. Donald Trump. He is in the general election. The businessman who called the heroin problem as an unbelievable problem at an event in New Hampshire said, you know where that stuff comes from? A reference to his previous claims that immigrants bring drugs across the southern border. We're going to work on that, and we're going to work on it very strongly, he said, although he did not give specifics. His brother, who struggled with addiction, died of alcoholism. Ted Cruz. The Texas senator also not spoken extensively about how to tackle heroin addiction, but he considers it a local issue. I think dealing with the challenges of drug and alcohol addiction and treatment and rehabilitation are primarily questions for state and local officials and healthcare professionals. But it is a raising problem that needs to be dealt with, and dealt with seriously, he told Roll Call in October. Dr. Ben Carson, the former neurosurgeon, tied the rising rates of addiction to shifting American values and heightened focus on political correctness in November appearance on CBS Face the Nation. Dr. Carson said, addictions happen in people who are vulnerable. We have to really start asking ourselves, what have we taken out of our lives in America? What are some of those values and principles that allowed us to extend the ladder of success so rapidly to the very pinnacle of the world, and the highest pinnacle anyone else had ever reached? And why are we in the process of throwing it all away, our values and principles, for the sake of political correctness, he said, when asked about it during a poll. He then referenced the flow of drugs across the southern border. He said we need to not give up this war on drugs, and certainly not to facilitate it. We can do this, but we have to have a national will to do it as a nation. Hillary Clinton, the other finalist in the general election, the former Secretary of State, had spoken extensively with voters about heroin addiction throughout her campaign. She proposed a plan to tackle the epidemic in September. Her plan mainly relies on financial incentives for states for initiatives like programs to stop or prevent young people from taking drugs and to get treatment if they need it. She also wants states to be sure that the first responders have access to naloxone, the drug that can help treat opiate overdose, and that they use state prescription drug monitoring programs to ensure that opiate painkillers are being prescribed appropriately. More broadly, she has called for criminal justice from reform that will push people into treatment rather than into prison. Bernie Sanders, along with Maryland Republican Elijah Cummings, wants states to make deals with the company that makes Naxalone to ensure prices don't skyrocket. I think we have a lot to tell the medical professions and doctors who are prescribing opiates, and the pharmaceutical industry that have got to start getting their act together. We cannot have this huge number of opiates out there throughout this country where young people are taking them, getting hooked, and then going to heroin, Sanders said. He also said that the U.S. must radically change the way it deals with mental health and addiction issues to ensure that they do not wait several months for treatment anymore. Martin O'Malley, former governor from Maryland, has during the course of the campaign mentioned a close friend who lost a daughter to addiction. He has called for better federal monitoring, the epidemic of $12 billion in federal investment and partnerships to help reduce drug overdoses. O'Malley would expand access to Naxalone among the first responders and hospitals. He would build on policies he had implemented as governor, such as following Medicare and Medicaid dollars to be used to recover medications that help reverse overdoses and treat addictions. O'Malley also wants more doctor training on drug prescriptions and stronger prescription drug monitoring programs. These are just some of the candidates. Of course, there are only two left now because we are here in August. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I never want to talk about politics on these videos, but be careful on who you choose. Think wisely. Their honesty rates on both ends are very low, so you have to say to yourself, who do you want to trust enough to be president? You have Hillary Clinton and you have Donald Trump. Let's work on eliminating drug abuse in this country, and only you and I together as a team, and the rest of the country together as a team, can conquer this. May God bless you.
Have you ever prayed but never got an answer, and wondered if God was really there? Did you feel all hope was gone, but in His time He came along and answered the prayer you thought was gone. There is no prayer too small, for God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember, there is no prayer too small. I have a ready few, will ask, you shall receive. No matter what it is, I still believe. There is no prayer too small, and even when we fall, He gives us just exactly what we need. There is no prayer too small, for God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember, there is no prayer too small. No prayer too small. He always knows what's right. God hears them all. There is no prayer too small. My God hears them all. The answer may not be just what you want, but He always knows what's right, even when we think it's wrong. Just remember,